Good evening. Welcome. At this time, we're going to have our invocation, and that's going to be done by Donna Wortman of Bath. Donna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate this time and opportunity. I just want to make a quick observation. I just got done a couple of weeks ago spending time up in Jamestown, going over the historical aspects of our country, the founding forefathers, and all of that. And I look around here and I see Beaufort County was established in 1712 on the sheriff's emblem, 1738. And I'm just so amazed about how blessed we are in this country and the amount of history. Beaufort County is historic, agricultural, recreational, industrial. We live in a wonderful, wonderful county. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to steward our county for each one of us that are here. So I want to thank the Lord for allowing us to be here. And thank you, Lord Jesus, for allowing us to be here, to be in this county, to be in this country, to be with these gentlemen that steward your land here. And we ask you, Lord, to protect them, bless them, give them wisdom, give them opportunity and favor to go forth and to be radical thinkers and radical doers. We thank you, Lord, for each person that lives in this county and for everyone that here that has something they want to talk about that's important to them. And I thank you, Lord, for allowing me to live here and for each one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. At this time, I'll call the October Board of Commissioners to order. And at this time, we'll be led with the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Walker. Please stand.
Please place the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I want to ask that you make sure that you turn your phone completely off, or at least in the vibrate method. All right, the next item of business is conflict of interest. Does any one of the commissioners have an item on the agenda that they need to reflect? Hearing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. The next item is our service awards presentation. Dolores?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We have a number of Beaufort County employees that we'd like to recognize tonight for their service to Beaufort County. First of all, we have Scott Cullum with 25 years in with the Department of Social Services. Next, we have Ms. Kelly Smith, who also has 10 years of service with the Department of Social Services. Next, we have Wynn Kenyon, our tax collector, and he has 10 years of service.
He actually got applause.
And then we have Greg Van Essendel from our sheriff's office, and he also has 10 years of service. And we have one more employee to recognize who could not be here tonight, Meredith Mobley from our health department, who has 5 years of service.
Thank you very much, Dolores. We're down to public comment, and we have two. So, Latrice Peel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us this time to introduce Cornerstone Community-Based Programs staff and advocates. My name is Latrice Peel. I am the Regional Advocate Coordinator at Cornerstone Community-Based Programs. I have with me my Chief Operation Officer, Ms. Shirley Robertson. I also have Ms. Tamika Spruill, which is our Program Manager. This evening, I want to share a great initiative with you and one of our many programs, BCH3C, which is Beaufort County Healthy Clergy, Congregations, and Communities. This program has received a grant for KBR Charitable Trust, which has allowed us to employ a community advocate in each region in Beaufort County. Cornerstone BCH3C wants to assist the marginalized people, groups in our communities to promote health and health equity by providing a seat at the table, a hand in action, and a voice in the conversation to combat the social drivers that have a negative impact on promoting health and health equity for a better quality of life. These individuals will begin to facilitate, strategize, and encourage our community to address the social drivers of health and well-being within our county. I have those individuals here with me today to introduce themselves and the regions that they will be representing.
My name is Johnny's Carroll, and I'll be representing Washington, which is Region 1, and also the immediate surrounding areas. I am Lavakina Grimes. I am a regional community advocate for Region 3, which will be representing Chocowinity and Bloods Creek.
And I'm Bill Cox Jr., and I'll be representing Region 4, which will include Aurora and Edwards.
We also have a Mr. Alfred Griffin, who cannot be with us today, but he will be representing the Region 2. That consists of Belhaven, Pantego, and the Bath area. Thank you for allowing CCBPS staff and our regional advocates the time to come and introduce ourselves. We are so excited to have this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Patricia Garrison.
Good evening. Solid waste disposal has been a topic of conversation for a number of years, being discussed ad nauseum. When the waste disposal site at Pamlico Beach was closed, I believe the taxpayers were told that the site at Sydney Crossroads would become a roll-off. Dirt was put on this site, but has since been removed. How much did that cost? How many additional homes are now using the Sydney site? To place yard waste and large items, such as sofas, chairs, etc., in a dumpster, one must walk up approximately 6 steps to do so. If the household waste receptacle is full, as it often is, one must walk up steps to place trash in the receptacle. When it rains, water runoff comes out of the household trash dumpster and flows into the driveway where you have to step to place trash in the receptacle. Therefore, you are stepping in unsanitary wastewater runoff, so your shoes smell like sewage and then your vehicle smells like sewage. Cherry Road, River Road, and Chocowinity sites, I believe, are being updated. But of course, these service those living close to the county seat. Please provide a service to the tax-paying citizens making the Sydney Crossroads disposal site a roll-off.
Thank you. We do not have either one of our legislative representatives here, so we'll move to items for consent. Is there anyone that would like to pull any of the items for consent? John?
I'd like to pull item number 2 on the COVID-19 vaccine purchase.
Okay. Is there any other?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the items for consent, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're down to public hearing. This is on the decision for road name. I need a motion to go into the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Are you going to do that, Brian, or? I'm sorry, Joshua. I'm not sure why that went off. I think Jerry said it for me. That's it.
Where do you want to move that to?
The agenda item I have is the one that was brought before y'all previously as far as the petition to name a road submitted by Eric Stevens. Again, this is submitted based off of a address that was requested off of an unnamed, or off of one of the parcels off of the unnamed road. Currently, an easement is already throughout the 3 parcels that it goes through, and the ordinance requires that the road name be named once the 3rd address is on the road. The 3 suggestions that were submitted, again, not a road, which was struck down last meeting. And the second one, which I've confirmed with Land Records, Sail Away, it does not duplicate any existing road names within Beaufort County, nor are there any sound-alikes, and we're recommending the approval of that second choice, Sail Away. And it was advertised appropriately and was posted in the paper on the September 20th and 27th edition of Washington Daily News.
We did not have anybody sign up for the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the naming of this road? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close our public hearing.
Motion to close.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, raise your right hand. Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to proceed with the naming of the road.
So moved.
Got a motion and second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the naming of the road, raise your right hand. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if it's all right with you, could we go back and handle item for consent that was pulled, item number 2, the COVID-19 vaccine purchase? Janelle is here.
Yes.
And I'm not sure how long she'll be here.
That'll be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you will, Janelle, come up.
Yeah.
Okay, John, what's your question?
Janelle, 2 questions. Sure. We're buying 500 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, right?
Yes, sir.
How do we arrive at 500?
Sure. So we pulled from our EMR from last year. We didn't want to take since the beginning of time because of multiple boosters, and this is just a one shot. So we pulled our files from EMR. We got to about 1,500. We first cannot purchase 1,500. That's a lot of money. But also with the bridge program and the vaccines for children, we then looked at qualifications based on the number who received, the number we'd be receiving from the state, and then what we could adequately purchase.
Okay. What is the lifespan, shelf span?
That I don't know. I'd have to look at it. Now, I will say with Moderna, it's a 1-dose vial,
Right.
which is great because we don't have to go out searching for arms to waste anything. So I know once it's opened, it's got to be used within that day.
So if we don't use it, then we're paying for it, right?
Right, but that's why it's that 1-dose vial will be great because we're only going to open it when we have those appointments or those drive-throughs, and it's one stick in the shoulder, and we're done.
And what is Medicare going to pay on this?
So,
I mean, I know on the next one you've got changing our rates.
so we actually changed those to meet those same
Okay,
rates
so
that they
they're
would
the
be
same as
reimbursing.
Medicare.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good enough, that's all I had.
Okay, any other questions? I will just make a statement while I'm up here. So I know there's obviously a lot of news and education going out right now about the COVID vaccine. Just to kind of put it in perspective, we are on a day-to-day basis waiting for vaccine to come in. Our goal is to be able to offer drive-through vaccines on both sides of the county, but just to put it in perspective, when they say the supply is coming in very small doses, they are not lying. We got one and right now we have 10. And so we just can't do much with 10. So we're on our heels right now, waiting as best we can as we get bridge program and put in our order for Moderna, but we'll update as best we can. And go ahead.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to start a vaccine program unless you've got a fairly lengthy number of people that want to get it.
We would like to see more come in so that we could do a mass drive-through because that was very successful. However, if we continue to see this barrier, we're going to do appointments and do the best we can with what we got. Because sooner vaccinated better than later. But we just don't have that time frame at the time being.
Janelle.
Sure.
Speaking of mass drive-through, when are you going to start a campaign for the flu vaccine?
That's funny you did say that. We actually just created the campaign today. It should be released tomorrow. We're going to do 2 drive-throughs this month, and then we're also doing the county outreach this month as well. It'll be 2 Thursdays. The 26th is a Thursday, and then the 19th before that. And then pending how many people show up, we'll continue to do that until we obviously want to be very cautious with having staff out there. If we still see the need, we'll continue doing those drive-throughs until we transition to appointments.
Thanks.
Randy?
How does this get notified? How does residents get notified that you're ready to give vaccines?
Sure, for flu and COVID or kind of all the above. So our social media website, we work with Brandon. We'll do a media release. Like I said, those details were just finalized today. So Brandon, I know you're listening. You'll get a nice email from me tomorrow. But we'll work on that. And then we also do call downs. We use the HyperReach with EM. The schools also are a mini pod, so we work directly with our school nurses and they do vaccinations for their staff. So that kind of takes some off of ours. And then we also do with our billings. So it has a full paper route where it goes in each billing statement that our clients receive as well.
Okay. Need a motion to approve the purchase.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the purchase of the COVID vaccine, please raise your right hand. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Janelle. All right, we're down to items for decision, soil and water. Mr. Willard?
Evening, gentlemen. Beaufort Soil and Water Conservation District was awarded grant funds through the Stream Flow Rehabilitation Assistance Program to continuous work in removing storm debris from various Beaufort County waterways. Phase 1 was completed in February of this year. A request for proposals for Phase 2 was published on August 21st, 2023. 7 bids were received. The bids were opened on September 12th, 2023. A bid tabulation sheet is attached. The Beaufort Soil and Water Conservation District's Board of Supervisors recommend approval of a $62,300 purchase order for the Phase 2 Strat project.
Any questions of Nathaniel? All right, entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Question?
Just a comment. We appreciate the detailed explanation of why we're going with number 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yep, absolutely, no problem.
Any other comment? All right, all those in favor of approving the contract, please raise your right hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to Brad, Economic Development, North Carolina Commerce Building Reuse Grant, Elite Trucks.
Thank you, Chairman, and other members of the board. We have been working with Elite Truck Boxes LLC, a company located here in Washington, and they are in expansion mode. They have purchased a building at 307 North Market Street and are in the process of investing over $2 million and creating 31 new high-paying jobs in our community. We had applied for a North Carolina Commerce Building Reuse Grant to support those funds and were awarded said grant on June 15th in the amount of $200,000. and we are asking the commissioners to approve the grant contract as well as establish a grant project fund. You should have wasn't included in your packet, but a budget amendment request as well that would transfer the $5,000, which was 2.5% of that local match, and that'll also be matched by the city of Washington to support this project as well. So we are asking for approval of the grant contract as well as establishing the grant project fund and authorizing staff to carry this forward to the next steps.
Got a motion?
Before you do the motion, I have one question.
How are we going to secure this loan?
We are securing the document through the contract itself.
No.
If the company doesn't perform, then there's a clawback provision, and then they would have to pay back the grant amount.
We're using the deed of trust for the callback?
Yes.
That's what we've always done, is not a promissory note, as this thing talks about in here, but a deed of trust.
We can do either one, but a deed of trust, I think, is how we've done it in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, we got a second. Now, any further discussion? All right, I'll entertain a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Brian. All right, the next item is Chris, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Brick Grant. Did I say that right?
Good job.
There's no K on there, but I put a K on the other.
I try to put a K on it as well. So good afternoon, Commissioners. Wanted to talk with you tonight about an opportunity we have to seek some grant funding to potentially bring a little bit of depth of resiliency to some infrastructure components we have in the county. So earlier this month, many of you may have seen in email exchanges the notice of this grant opening. And as the name would suggest, it is really intended to provide funding to local and state governments for the purpose of beefing up their infrastructure and being more resilient to natural disasters. About a week after that notification first came out, another email dropped and really advising us that FEMA had placed a new designation on 4 of our census tracts in the county. And that designation, as North Carolina Emergency Management interprets it, would put us ahead of the race kind of out of the gates as our grant application are reviewed for projects like this. So with those things in mind, we began to explore some different projects that we could submit for on behalf of the county. We really looked at 3 different ones, the first being a shovel-ready project for soil and water. Reaching out to Miss Ann and Nathaniel, they have a running list of canal debris projects that just aren't currently funded for removing debris and things of our drainage canals. In talking with North Carolina Emergency Management, this type of project would fit that category for requests, so we have included that for some debris cleanup in canal projects. The second is a capacity building where we're looking to put additional river monitoring gauges along our rivers, as well as some visual references for citizens to know that to see in the communities and throughout our county, so that when we say we're going to get 4 to 6 feet of storm surge, that's how high it is in any given area, right? So those references have worked well on the coastal counties, particularly Dare County. We would look at that as a possible informational and educational component for our county as well. The third project we're working with is an engineering study with Public Works. In talking with Christina, our current water system has several areas in which only one water line feeds a given population. So if something were to happen to that one feeder line, we've got a hub of people without water. This particular grant will allow us to do an engineering study to see what kind of workarounds and infrastructure components could be put in place to resolve that issue. As with many grants, this is a 75-25 match. So if we are awarded these grants and you as a board decide to accept it, we would be responsible for 25%. We can justify within that 25% things like in-kind contributions as far as personnel costs and things like that that go to
to managing and developing these projects. So a number of different ways that we could potentially work on that 25% match. But again, this is just the first step. This is just the entry letter of interest. And what this will look like is an application phase that could take probably the next 3 to 4 months. The state evaluates our letter of interest. If we pass the first hurdle, we go to a full application, and from there, the grading process to the state. So it's an opportunity. It's competitive, but all they can do is tell us no. And we're asking for your permission to proceed with the application process and see if this tree bears fruit for us.
The water, you said an engineering study for the water, just the study, not paying for any of the repair work?
This would be a study to determine in those areas that have only one feeder line. This study would help identify what other infrastructure components we would need to put in place, the cost of it, sizes, all of those different things to provide a redundant means of water into that area. So, no sir, this particular submission is just for planning purposes. Now, the benefit of submissions like this is BRIC really likes phased application. They like to fund the research in one cycle and fund the shovel-ready project in the next. We're not at a point that we can submit that for shovel-ready, so we're asking for funds to help us get it to that point.
Well, we've got several stream crossings that the original water lines have failed on. I mean, they're shovel-ready. I mean, the reason I bring that up is I don't know what other improvements could be made quicker than the stream crossings that we know that have already failed and replacing those.
Yes, sir. And I believe on our end, the time stamp that we were up against is we were really given less than 30 days notice to put this application together.
Well, okay, just be aware that we're shovel-ready on a lot of water repairs.
Yes, sir.
Already. Now, the second thing I want to say is, I really don't support stream gauges on the river because I think it's just something to keep up. That it's only going to help the people that live within sight of them. So it's not a useful project in my estimation.
Any other? Yes, Randy.
I'm extremely interested in the river gauge. I watch the 17 bridge all the time, and with the water coming from east to west, by the time the the river gauge on 17 reads it, right, I'm already starting to experience underwater situations. So I would love to see it, to be able to say, here it comes.
And I believe that may kind of go back to some of the usefulness that Commissioner Richardson had mentioned. Is we know our vast network of waterways, we only have a few gauges, and in our opinion, they don't depict the full picture that's happening with our water. We see that during hurricanes. We see that on just wind-driven events. So a gauge at the bridge on 17 may be beneficial for someone there, may be useless to someone in Chocowinity Bay or Broad Creek. And our goal with this project would be to get river gauges spread out across those waterways and hopefully capture a better picture of it.
I have the app on my phone, and I'm alerted when the water gets to a certain level because I know things I need to do.
I make the motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and a second. Any more discussion? Ed?
This is just for the application. If we come back with $3 million, we got a grant, we got to come up with 25% of it. This is just the study, right?
Yes.
And we do have some preliminary monetary amounts as well. So the debris clean out of the canal projects, those projects that were submitted to us would total $372,000. The river gauge and the marking poles, $140,000, and then the engineering component of what do we need to be shovel ready, that maxes out at $200,000. So we have some estimates there, and again, this is just getting us into the topic of conversation. And if it's awarded, obviously we bring that before you with firm numbers, and you at that point can choose to accept it or deny it.
Any more discussion? Okay. We're going to vote, but stay there. Don't leave.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you. And this question is for you or Brian, either one. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have had any calls or not, but I've had 2 calls as it relates to cleanup, and I'm assuming that we do not qualify for any debris cleanup on the tropical storm.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, the next item is our solid waste ordinance. And Christina and Wes is going to lead this. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Included in your agenda book, you will find the final draft of the solid waste ordinance that we first introduced at last month's meeting in September. As we said then, according to Senate Bill 300, North Carolina General Statute, because the ordinance does include criminal penalties, there did have to be a second presentation of the ordinance. So included in your agenda book is the solid waste ordinance along with a revised fee schedule. Again, no changes have been made from the last meeting. If this is chosen to be adopted per previous request from the Board of Commissioners, it would take effect on January 1 of 2024. So during the next few months, the staff would work together with Brandon to put out press releases and different type of information such as that. Wes and Brandon actually had a very detailed meeting last week, coming up with a very detailed schedule of different items in different ways that they would get the information out to everyone. Does anyone have any comments or have any comments about the ordinance?
Well, I think all the commissioners have received correspondence as related to paragraph 52-102, item number G, where we were limiting the collection from 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to go into that, or do we have representation?
Mr. Bergevin is here. He's the owner of David's Trash Service, so that's the letter that you're speaking of. I can speak of it, or Mr. Bergevin may, but again, he expressed many concerns regarding the limitation that put on his business in order to get the volume of pickups taken care of during that time frame. Currently, David's Trash Service is the only private company that is providing individual residential pickup. So again, you understand, based upon the geography of the county, that would put severe limitations upon him getting that work completed. There are actually municipalities that actually have requested of David's Trash Service that they be completed by 6 a.m. So municipalities within the county would like that service to be provided to them during the early morning hours when traffic is not as heavy and it doesn't impact people as much. So that the other municipalities have also expressed concern with that.
We've had letters from the town of Pantega and the town of Bath.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think we are infringing on the right of private business to operate on further reflection, and I think that we need to remove that from the ordinance. You can always, if you have problems, go back and put something in to take care of whatever that particular problem is. I think this was a good idea, but we just were not aware of what's really goes on in that particular business and what's necessary to make it successful. I know I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and over where I live in Smallwood, I can hear them framming and banging down in Washington collecting garbage. So we just need to just remove it. Let them run their business the way they need to without our interference.
Well, one of the things that I have not thought about is public safety. We do have areas in the county where, for example, in North Carolina 33, between Chocowin and Aurora, there's certain times during the day that it's a real safety hazard for those guys to be parked in the road trying to pick those up. And since you're here, Daniel, I would say that Highway 99 is in the same situation between Pantega and the county line. When they're there during the rush hour, well, I say rush hour. Our rush hour is tractor trailer loads of grain and logs. So it is very dangerous, a lot of curves. So I agree with what Commissioner Richardson is saying. I think we just need to take it out completely, and I think address a problem if it arises. Commissioner Rebholz.
Obviously, this got put in for a reason. Can you give us some information on what brought this to the forefront?
Yes, sir. As was discussed a few months previous, there have been telephone calls to the Solid Waste Department, the County Manager's Office, and then also to some of the commissioners regarding pickup in the early morning hours. So it was requested, so it was put into the ordinance.
I think we refer them to Mr. Burgess.
There's two questions here. Is David's the only industry that's going to be impacted by this?
Currently, yes, sir.
Okay, so we're sort of writing an ordinance picking on one person. The other thing is, how many different individuals actually complain? I mean, we have a tendency to get one phone call and the whole county is upset.
I do not disagree with that statement, but that there were more than one phone calls and more than one subdivision, and more than one commissioner had expressed concern with that. So we put, that's why it was included in, because again, we would say we do not control that, we do not have an ordinance for that, we do not have zoning, the county does not have regulations in place. So that's why it was included, to see if that was the board's desire to have it in place. And again, a few months ago, we spoke about it, and the board desires to have it in place, and it's included in the ordinance. If it is the board's desire not to have it, then it is removed, and Wes and I will continue answering it as we have previously, which that is not something that Beaufort County regulates. So that is private industry. And I will say, in speaking with Mr. Bergevin, that he has had complaints from people in certain neighborhoods, and when that has happened, he has tried to rework his routing around that so that that is minimized.
Jerry?
Well, I think last time we had this discussion, they were saying something about trash being picked up 2 o'clock in the morning. I just take issue with that. I think 4 o'clock in the morning is a good time. I mean, but if this board chooses not to have any time limits on it, I'm not going to gasp for air, but I would think if they started at 4 o'clock in the morning, that should be reasonable.
Randy?
Is this changing this going to cause you to have to start over? Like, do we need to, I mean, is it going to cause it, the start time to be pushed back or anything?
I will defer that to the county attorney, but
that question's already being raised. Brian, you want to answer?
Yes, sir. So the county attorney and I had a conversation about that last week, and because it is a removal from the ordinance, you're not adding something new to the ordinance. It was already out there. You've had a public hearing on it. You've taken comments. This is the second reading. If you were to add something that wasn't in there previously, yeah, you probably procedurally would need to have another public hearing on it. But because you're taking something out that was already in there and the public has had the opportunity to see it and comment on it, the county attorney's opinion when we discussed it was that you're fine. You don't need to take another public hearing.
Any other discussion?
No, I'll make a motion if you want it.
Okay.
I move that we remove the provision that regulates when trash is picked up in Beaufort County from the ordinance.
And I'll second it.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of removing paragraph 52 dot 102, item number G, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Thank you. Did you have any?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if you can make a motion on the ordinance now.
Oh, okay. All right. we need a motion to approve the, should we say amended, or, okay, the amended ordinance.
Motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Recycling is going to be one of those things that's going to come along later, I reckon, because we don't know all the moving parts that's going to be operating and creating an environment for us that we must deal with, depending on market, depending on how much money we get, what we decide to do as a group. So recycling is going to be that moving piece that's going to be part of this ordinance, and we'll deal with that later.
Yes, sir. And if you'll note how the ordinance is organized with the different articles and different numbering, that is so that we will be able to go in and to add and clarify as things change in the future, because they will. This document is not a perfect document. It will be a living, breathing document, so I'm sure there will be things that will come up that will need to be revised, and recycling is definitely one.
From reading it, I got that opinion. I just wanted to hear you say it at the meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else have a, yes?
I think I asked you this the last time. Did you take that piece out about going in folks' yard, moving their cars and chairs and stuff?
The cars and the manufactured homes, that is a separate item from this solid waste ordinance.
So it's separate from that ordinance?
Yes, sir. That will be brought back to you at a later date. Okay. It's currently being reviewed by other people because it has more detailed information.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of approving the solid waste amended ordinance, raise your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen.
And one thing I would like to say, today the River Road collection site was the first day that it's closed for approximately 6 weeks to start the renovations and repair some of the safety items. So again, a reminder to everyone that the site at River Road or Magnolia School Road is closed. So we ask the residents to please visit the other neighboring sites, Cherry Run, landfill sites, or Yatesville or Five Points.
Will the other sites who normally close 1 day a week, will they continue to do that during this time period?
No, sir, they will be open. Will all of them be open, Wes?
All the four sites that Christina just mentioned will be open 7 days a week while this is going on.
Very good.
And when we move to the other sites, the sites that stay open will change. It's based on the location of the site being worked on.
Any other?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, Anita? The first one is increase the purchase order threshold from $500 to $2,500.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, good evening, first of all, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. May I start with page 259 and do the school capital first?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think that'll be a little less contentious. Go ahead and knock that one out. So on page 259, you have before you a calculation of the additional school payment that's owed to the schools for their fiscal year 22-23 restricted sales tax for their capital. And just to give you a little bit of background, everyone here should be familiar with the fact that we are required by law to give 30% of our Article 40 sales tax distributions and 60% of Article 42 sales tax distributions to the school for capital funding. And you can see there in the middle of the page of 259 that for fiscal year 22-23, we collected right at $4.1 million for our Article 40 sales tax. If you take 30% of that number, that's a distribution to the schools of the $1.229 million. And then for Article 42, we were distributed $3.4 million. And 60% of that number is right at $2,050,000. So all in all, for last year, we owe the schools for their share of restricted sales tax the $3,279,941.62. And then we also owe them for the lottery funds that were collected, $474,000, giving us a total due to the schools of the $3,753,941.62. We actually budgeted and paid the schools in both cash capital and debt service for the school buildings, $3,501,311, leaving a balance owed to the schools of $630,000.62. Now, the Finance Committee did meet on September 19th to kind of discuss how they might want to recommend that these funds be used for the schools. And if you'll recall, the schools have requested in their last couple of budget submissions that we do a set-aside for technology needs that they're going to be they're going to have coming up in about 4 years. And so the Finance Committee did want to recommend to the full board that we do reserve this $252,000 payment for future technology needs at the schools.
Actually,
that's my recommendation, that you would follow the Finance Committee's recommendation and reserve that money for future capital needs, which I believe they said were for tablet replacements that they purchased with
COVID
grant money several years ago.
And we're already a year into that 4-year time frame, so.
Yeah, I believe overall they requested $2.5 million total. They started out with a $500,000 request over a 5-year period, and after we didn't fund it the first year of their request, it got bumped up to a $625,000 request over a 4-year period. So this will put, not a huge dent in their request, but certainly get us started towards setting money aside for that capital need that's coming up in a few years for them.
Entertain.
I have a question.
Okay, let me get a second, then we'll get to.
Second.
All right, okay. Good.
In addition to the funds, payments on school mortgages, don't we appropriate to the school board about 1.7 million a year, and we call it capital?
Yes, that is in this calculation. That is in the 3.5 million.
That is in the $3.5
Yes, sir.
million. Okay.
And operating expenses too.
No, not operating.
Oh, it's not?
operating.
Okay, I'm
No,
sorry.
Just
I'm sorry.
capital.
Just capital.
Yeah, our debt service is down to almost nothing on the schools at this point. In fact, it's going to be paid off in a couple of years.
Okay, we need to give this a lot more consideration when budget time comes around again. Maybe we'll get the school board to come in front of us and we can actually talk to them about it.
Yes, Ed.
I need to understand what you're saying is we in our bounds to earmark this money?
It is.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Anyone else? All right. All those in favor of the additional amount of money due the schools of $252,630,000.62 go into a technology reserve fund. Raise your right hand. Thank you.
I have one comment.
Yes.
The statute provides that it's possible for counties to go back to the state on the use of these capital funds when they get to the point that they don't need to use the capital funds for capital. So we don't have to keep dumping this money out there once we've paid off these debts.
But you still got capital needs.
Well, you still use what you can for capital, but you don't have to spend every dime you've got just because you have it.
Is technology considered to be capital?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I mean, that's...
I agree that with your point on technology. I was holding back on this. A lot of this modern technology, these tablets and stuff, is proven to not be useful to education. So we need to keep that in mind also. Now, I'm not fighting doing what you're doing right here, but I'm just saying, be careful what you ask for, because some of the technology that we're giving students in schools and online learning doesn't work.
Okay, you want to go back to the item increase purchase order threshold from 500 to 2,500?
Yes, sir. That's on page 257. So just to give you a little bit of history on the purchase order threshold over the years, before 2007, every dime spent within the county required a purchase order. So even if you had like, I don't know, you purchased a $4 pack of highlighters, that required a purchase order. In 2007, that threshold was raised from $0 to $100. And then I don't have the exact year, but it had to be between 2010 and 2013. It changed from a $100 threshold to $500. So it's been a good 10, 12, 13 years since we've addressed increasing our purchase order threshold. It's been at $500 since around 2010 to 2012. So I'm before you tonight to ask for an increase in that threshold. In reviewing what other counties and towns do with their thresholds, you can see we reached out. We actually posted on our finance listserv for other responses from other counties and cities to see what their amounts were, and it ranges from, there's several that are right at where we are currently, the $500. There's one that's actually less than we are at $250, but you can see there's several counties that are, above that amount at $1,000, some at $2,500, some at $3,000, or one at $3,000 and one at $5,000. So if we do move forward with raising the threshold in Beaufort County from $500 to $2,500, I do think there will be a significant time savings for staff. So just to talk a little bit briefly about the workflow of how a purchase order is requisitioned, it starts at the department level. So you have an end user that may be a supervisor, it may be an administrative assistant that goes in our system, our software, and they do a requisition for a purchase order. And once they enter that in, that gets routed to a second individual, which is usually a manager or the department head in the department, to review the purchase order, the items that are being purchased. They sign off and approve it or either deny it. If it gets approved, it gets routed to the purchasing agent, where she then batches them all up, gives them a thorough review, and sends them to me for review and signature. So that's our normal process. And we do this about 1,200 times a year. We do a lot of purchase orders, about 1,200 of them last year. And if we do raise our threshold, we feel like that it'll cut that number in half. We'll go down from about 1,200 POs to about 560.
Yes, Ed.
You answered the question that I had to answer. You do it about 1,200 times a year. But the other question I have, I looked at this list of these other government agencies.
Yes, sir.
Some of those cities are larger than our whole county, and theirs not at $5,000. So why would you set the threshold at $5,000?
It's $2,500.
It's $2,500?
Yes.
Okay. But why would you? What would cut that down? You said with 60%, 50%, or?
So raising it from the 500 that it is currently to 2,500 would cut the number in half. So instead of doing almost 1,200 purchase orders annually, we do less than 600.
And you save that in people having to go back and forth?
We're estimating about 140 hours in staff time annually. So, you know.
Can I speak to Mr. Booth as well?
Yes.
So, sorry, Ned, just real quick. So the internally staff had been having that conversation for a while. The reason we moved forward with it and have the discussion that she's going to talk about with the Finance Committee was the Sheriff's Office reached out to us and said, Sheriff Hammond said that it was becoming difficult for his office with vehicle repairs. That nowadays when you take a vehicle that has any kind of damage to it, it's typically it's obviously more than $500 to get anything done on a vehicle. And he came and said, I would like for y'all to consider increasing that because it's impacting my operations in being able to get vehicles back on the road quicker. That was his concern. It does spread across the entire county. As you know, the cost of things have gone up tremendously, and we've not kept pace with that. So just wanted to put that in play.
Yeah, and for me, this is a bit of a tricky recommendation for me because having the threshold at $500 obviously gives me more control. I get to see more purchase orders. So I do feel very comfortable that we have the internal controls in place on reviewing the invoices. There's 5 people that review invoices before they get paid. So anything that falls beneath the $2,500 PO threshold, we still have 5 people reviewing that invoice before the check gets issued to the vendor.
It's not that I'm trying to micromanage what you do, but my question was, and my question still is, if these cities that's larger than our whole county, Beaufort County, Greensboro, larger, they got more population than our whole county. That's the reason I was asking that. Another thing is, since the manager said that the sheriff requested it, this is not enough, because if you break a mirror off a car now, it's more than $2,500.
Yeah, I agree, but for me, I have to weigh as the finance officer what I'm comfortable with putting the threshold at and having control over seeing and signing the purchase order for, with the departments operating efficiently and effectively and saving staff time. And I'm comfortable with that $2,500 limit.
You still have some control within the department. I mean, even though it may not, pardon?
Audit. She has audit control.
Yeah. But I mean, even the department head has got responsibility
Yeah, that's
at
what I
that
was
level
talking
too.
about, the invoice. There's an invoice for every purchase that's made with the county, and that gets 5 approvals before that check's ever issued. So,
I have a question, goes to what you're talking about. What is the operating chain of approval? Sheriff has a car that's broke, using him as an example. He has a car that's broken and needs to be fixed. How does that work as far as his approval of spending up to $2,500, or any department for that matter, spending up to $2,500? What are those controls?
so it all gets back to let's take your example. There's a car that broke down on the side of the road, and the repair bill is $2,300. So they're no longer, if this passes, required to do a purchase order. So once that invoice comes in, there would be a person, and I believe that person is Callie Harris in the sheriff's office, that would receive that invoice, and she would do the initial review and approval. It would get routed to the individual, whether that be Chief Deputy Hickman or some other high-ranking officer to approve behind her. Then that would come to my office, the finance office, where the accounting technician who's keying that invoice in would be reviewing that invoice before she keys that into the system. Also, that gets reviewed by our purchasing agent, that batch of checks before they're written, and it comes to me for final approval. So there are 5 approvals on
Let's
that.
go back to the department head level, and below the department head level, who has authority within a department to approve, to even authorize that car to be repaired? I mean, how does this work within the departments?
I can't speak
Everybody
for
that
the
works in the
sheriff's-
department, can they go out and spend $2,500 and bring it in to say, here's the invoice?
I can't speak for the sheriff's office. He's here, he could speak to his
Well,
president.
this is a problem. This is where the problem is in this. Problem is not in your 5 approvals and all that. That's paper shuffling. The problem is somebody goes out and buys something that they maybe weren't authorized to buy. How, from a management standpoint, can every employee go out and order $2,500 worth of something without his supervisor's approval? How does this work within the
I can speak for
departments?
my department. I have 2 people in my department who orders things for my department. And so,
But, Mr. Manager, this needs to be nailed down, because this is not an adequate answer.
I think you gotta let Anita finish answering the question.
I think that every purchase that's made within the county is appropriated within our budget that you've approved. So I don't think that's an issue.
No.
I don't micro.
That's a question that I'm not asking. You're answering a question that involves the running of your department.
Okay.
How do you approve invoices for payment? I'm talking about the people that are out here doing the work day to day, and they suddenly realize, my whole computer system has failed, it's blown up, I've had the guy in here to look at it, and he's told me that it's junk, it's got to be replaced. What is the authorization program within the departments of the county for the spending of money? And let's be careful with this, because now I'm getting concerned about our controls.
I think it's different positions for different departments. It's different people for different departments, and I can't go department by department and list that. And let me just give you a funny little story. The second day that I worked here 8 years ago, I was signing purchase orders, and a pen, one pen, a purchase order for one pen came across my desk, and it was $140 for one pen at the sheriff's office. And I said, oh no. This ain't gonna happen. And so I breathed for a minute and I said, wait a minute, before I lose my cool and call Chief Deputy Rose at the time, let me Google this pen here. So what that pen was a specialized collapsible pen that you have to use in the jail for inmates so they can't stab somebody or themselves. And they cost $140. And I learned a really valuable lesson at that point. And that lesson was, you know, yes, I have oversight of what's being purchased in the departments, but I don't know their business like they do. And if he needs a $140 specialized pen in the jail, then that's what the sheriff says he needs. And I'll question it when I feel like I need to question it, and I do. But I think that story just summarizes what you're saying, Mr. Commissioner, that we have to trust that the departments know what they need to operate their department. I do have internal controls in at the department level that there's 2 approvals on every purchase that goes through. So somebody would have to be colluding with another individual in their department to be stealing things from the county. And then that comes to finance for 3 additional approvals.
All right, let's go back and ask the question a different way.
Total of 5 approvals.
Let's ask the question a different way. At what level are county employees, all the way from the guy out here digging a ditch up to the manager, at what level are county employees held in management? Where do we begin to hold them responsible? Where is the cutoff in this? And maybe the manager can answer this better than you can.
So when you say when are they held responsible, they're held responsible when the item comes across someone's desk to review it, and if it's not appropriate, then it goes back and they're responsible for that. I mean, if there's a public works department employee who's working in the ditch and needs a part from a supply house, they have the ability to, if we have an account with that supply house, to go get that as long as it's underneath the purchase order requirement. We will see that. The public works department will see that. Their supervisors will see it, and they'll know how that flow goes. But yes, I mean, we have employees, we have line level employees who have the ability to go purchase things. They have to get their job done. But we have controls in place to make sure.
I'm talking about the level of responsibility. I'm not talking about the ability to purchase. I'm talking about where do we start holding people responsible for, you got a gold-plated widget when you could have got a iron widget, would have done the same thing. Where is that level of accountability in county management?
So that level of accountability is with the person that made the purchase. They are responsible for using county funds appropriately, and if they don't, then there could be disciplinary action about that. So we hold every employee who does that responsible for their own actions.
Okay, at what level of management is this person flagged as being responsible?
I don't understand the question.
Who has the responsibility for approving what that individual does? His superior that signed off with him? Is that how it works?
Well, I mean, the supervisor, yes, the supervisor is responsible for their employees.
So the answer is it's all the people's signature that's on this chain of purchase.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
okay.
we have multiple checks along the lines. Right. It's in compliance with our auditing purposes.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I've seen the sheriff stand up 4 times or 5. Please step up here. Now, I'm not going to give you 20 minutes. But if you want to get inside of this situation.
And the reason I came to confront the county manager was when we take our vehicles to a local vendor to do a repair, like rigging out interior lights, emergency lights, we have to ship them over to B&G. Well, there's a vendor here locally, we can have that same work done. And just to keep our business at repair and quicker and get it back on the road, it's only fair that we keep our money here in Beaufort County and treat that vendor properly by paying him what he's due as quick as possible. So what was happening is we're waiting a long period of time to get the pay to our local vendor. It's just one example. Now, but that was your question. I could tell you that one of the checks and balances is we have a vehicle that needs additional parts, and when I looked at the cost of the modification, I made a executive decision, said, no, let's hold off on that expense because it is not prudent at the moment, but we can delay it until maybe our third quarter. So there are some checks and balances in our office. And I am responsible for all those expenses with Chief Deputy making sure that those expenses are validated and proper.
Thank you very much. Any other question? All right. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of increasing the threshold from 500 to 25, raise your right hand. Thank you very much. All right. Next item, or two items, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you'll see on page 261, this is a request from the Schooners Point Homeowners Association requesting that they be exempted from the addressing ordinance. So the background on this is brought to our attention in August of this year. An application for a new address was submitted to pull a permit. And when that occurs, we go back in and look at the address. And what was determined that was the addressing in that area, and I think that subdivision has been in place since the 80s or so. The addressing in that area was not the standard addressing that first is required by the county ordinance that the board adopted. But second, it was put in play by the developer. So what they essentially did was they said lot number 1 is 101, lot number 2 is 102. So it didn't follow the normal naming, the addressing process. Typically, the way in addressing, there are a couple of ways to address. Mostly in municipalities, you'll find block addressing, where you have one block, the 100 block, the 200 block, the 300 block. And then you have the linear addressing model, which is what the board adopted and adopted back in actually 93, where you go and you measure from the beginning of the road, the linear feet, and then you divide that by 5.28, and that determines the address. So when we find issues like this, and we found them before, under the ordinance, we're required to fix those. We'll say up front that this is not that folks don't like this. I understand folks don't like that, but it is an ordinance that we're required to follow. It was an ordinance this board approved. So, and our communication this time around was probably not very good, and we certainly admit to that. When it was sent out, the letters were sent out, and we probably, in fact, not probably, we could have done a lot better job in making sure that was informed a little better. The community, when they got those letters, said, we don't like this, and I understand that. They reached out to Chairman Waters and sent him a letter. And he reached out to me and we explained the ordinance. Then we went and met with representatives of their homeowners association and explained to them the reasoning for that. That first it was an ordinance that we are required. It's a policy decision by the board. The board is the legislative authority. We follow those ordinances. The board obviously has the ability to change that if they want to. But we don't have the ability to change that on our own. We would be violating the ordinance. And then the way it's done in the policy, in the ordinance, is in accordance with national standards, and you hear more and more about Next Gen 911 and being compliant with national standards. So we try to be in compliance with that. So you have the letter from the Homeowners Association asking that they be exempt from that. I mean, from their standpoint, they've been there for since 1980, and we've missed it through all these times. There have been homes that have been built out there. I don't know how we've missed it, but we did. So of course their contention is, well, it's fine the way it is. You can certainly find us if you need us. We've not had any issues to date, and why now? And all valid points, right? I can't answer the why now, except that when we find them, we're required by ordinance to fix them. So you have all this information in your packet. I think Mr. Smith is here tonight representing the Homeowners Association if you'd like to have him speak. But just from a staff's perspective, you have our recommendation, and that is that for us to be in compliance with the ordinance, we would request that you deny that, because then we think it would open up the entire county for anybody to say, I don't want to comply with the addressing ordinance.
Can it? I'll let you have it.
First of all, thank you for your time for letting us come and kind of voice our opinion. I understand what Brian is saying, but I also understand, I think you got the letter from Mike Bishop with the Homeowners Association with 4 requests that was in that letter. And I know that Schooner Point's been out there for over 30 years because I own 4 lots out there. And what you guys are requesting, or the county is requesting, is going to be a heavy burden on each property owner out there to change all their information. Not only a burden, but an expense. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes several weeks and even years to change all your information, all your billing information, credit card, driver's license, all that information that's got to be changed. That can be avoided from doing that with a couple of steps that I think was sent to you guys to look at. We understand that, well, I don't understand, because I'm 103, 104, 105, 106. Very simple in my opinion. Now what the county is saying that I need to be is 603, 615, 635. 300 foot apart. That doesn't sound sensible to me, to change the addresses in that stage. And I understand your logic of how you're saying it's done, or I don't understand it, but I know where you're coming from. And the 4 points that the Homeowners Association put before you, the commissioners, was 1, leave the primary address for the EMS or emergency services to what the addresses are now. If you want to have let the secondary address be the new addresses, which I think when we talked was something that right now the new address is the primary and the old address is the secondary. I don't think there's been any issue with the emergency services going out to Schooner Point finding anybody. And I hope that you guys would, or commissioners, not guys, but commissioners would understand that. Think about it on if it was you in that neighborhood that had to go out and change all this information that you've had for years. It's a big burden. And I would hope that you would, think about it if if you were the guys that would have to do it. But the 4 points, I want to say the 4 points that we asked, that was number 1. The other point was, and I might not be saying it just as if it was sent to you guys, but the first one was primary be the addresses that we have, secondary be the new address in the system. The second one was that we would go out and we would put signs, addresses at each house, which I think was what was in what you guys were asking in the ordinance. And then the third one was that we would go out and put a sign that would put a plaque that would show the addresses for the whole community. And that's something that we're willing to do as the community to keep the addresses that we have. And I understand address changes because I've had to go through it. Over 30 years ago, I was given an address of 208. And they came back last year and said I was given the wrong address for 30 years. But I understand this one because it was 214. But you're going from 103 to 603 to 615 to 635 in a 200-foot span. To me, that's more confusing for the EMS and emergency personnel than it would be from 103 to 104 to 105 to 106. You count it down. And it's even worse as you go further down, the address changes that is being given to the property owners. So I guess what I'm asking is that you guys would consider, I know that Brian said that, that he's asking that you not consider it, but I'm asking you as a homeowner and as the Schooner Point, to be here as a representative of Schooner Point, that you guys consider our request, that we would take and leave the addresses as is as the primary, and the addresses that you guys have come up with from the GIS, I guess is what it is, as the secondary. And that we can keep moving forward the way it is, and that would not put a burden on every property owner to go through and change all of their information, the addresses, to get everything changed.
Does anyone have a question of Mr. Smith?
He answered mine. You said, well, he answered my question.
Well,
I'm lost. I'm a little bit lost in the addressing method. If you take 1,056 feet and you divide it by 5.28, you're in the 200 block. If you go another 500 feet, what is that number?
So what you do is you start from the beginning of the road, this is back out on the main road, and then you come down, as you see in the map, comes all the way around, and you follow the center line, and then where that house sits on your left or on your right is where you stop, and you mark that distance, and it's divided by 528, and that gives you the number. So even to the left, odd to the left, even to the right.
Okay, but if you're coming off the road to get in the 600 block, you're 3,000 feet off the center line of the main road. Yeah, but if you go 200 feet, how do you jump from the 200 block to the 300, 400, 500 block?
So in your ordinance, there's also some language that talks about minimum spaces in between them. But these were linear measurements, so I'm not sure exactly the 200 feet or whatever.
Well, that's what my property is. I mean, I know what my property is, and that's what I don't understand.
So these were.
And I know you can make amendments to any ordinance.
That's right, and that's what was asked. That was what was asked.
Well, I understand the ask for the amendment, but I'm having a problem understanding the methodology of how you can jump within 500 feet from the 200 block to the 600 block.
It's not blocks.
I mean, from the 200 unit, from an address of 200 and something, and you go 300 or 400 feet, and now you're in a 600 number.
For every 5.82 feet, you go up one.
You go up 1 unit.
See, it's almost a half a mile from 92 to the first home.
That's right.
So you're already at 500.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but he's saying that you only went 300 or 400 feet, and he went from the 200.
I went from 603 to 635.
I mean, I would like to put this off until we can be able to understand our addressing method better. At least I would like to understand it better before I vote on this, because I'm not sure what I'm voting on. And I thought I understood this system because we've done addressing.
Mr. Smith, give me those two again. I'm going to do the math.
Okay. I own 103. Now it's going to be 603.
Okay, 603.
And then the next lot is 105. Now it's going to be 615.
Okay.
Then my next lot is 106.
Let's just do one. That's 63 feet. You take the footage and divide it by the 5.28. That's how the number comes up.
I get that, but isn't it going to be confusing for someone to say, okay, I get a fund, and the point number 4 that was sent to you guys, is that not the same night that we met with you, Commissioner Waters, and with Brian? That same night, EMS was called to the community and had no problem getting to the residents that it needed to go to with the addresses that we have now.
Well, and Chris, you might be able to answer this. If we have a really bad situation, there's no electricity, all the towers are down, how do you find a place in Schooners Point? How would you find it? Would it be a satellite telephone?
Be a GPS on you, I would think. So there's
responders are going to use different methods for finding different locations, right? So, for example, the Belhaven area, a lot of our folks that work that Belhaven station are familiar with that area. So they may not even look at a map. They're just going to say, I know where Scooter Point Road is, and start looking at numbers, okay? We do have the ability to use GPS locations. We, like many of you when you travel, have the ability to enter an address into Google. So I think from my perspective and my just take on this, us being able to find the location may not be the driving force of the ordinance. I think the driving force of the ordinance is, what does the future look like for that location? The address as he has it right now at 103 may work perfectly fine. But what happens if later on down the road, this, I believe it's Weyerhaeuser that owns that property between the main road and yours. What happens if Weyerhaeuser says, hey, I want to sell this property and create a subdivision? Then how do you put in addresses? Or if someone sells a lot and decides to split it, how do you do addressing? I think that's, to me, is where I would look at the ordinance on the value of an ordinance. For us being able to find it, it's however Google's going to pick it up, or whatever location is looking at 911.
Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, before you leave, with what you're doing there, you got, I can go down to the station right now and hide from you, and your GPS can't find me.
Correct.
So what happened if you got, if in your line of work, if you have someone that's working that area that's not familiar with that area, what is the risk then?
Yes, so what tools are at their disposal to find that location, right? And I'll be honest with you, we primarily default to these, right? Our cell phones. Couple of ways that address comes to us and gives us directions. So this is where we typically rely on. But what happens, like in many areas of our county where this doesn't work? What's our fallback, right? So we have a couple of options. All of our trucks have paper maps on them, so we can go back old school, look at a paper map. That'll tell us the road, won't tell us where his address is, right? Just get us in that area. The other thing that we do a lot of times is communicating back with 911 by our radio system. Hey, we're on Scooter Point, we're unable to find this location. We run into that a lot just with markings on a house not being legible from the street as they should be. So that's when perhaps the 911 is calling the caller back. Can you describe the house? Can you turn a light on? Can you meet someone in the driveway? All of those things have the potential to delay a response, but we do encounter that quite frequently. Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's go back to what Frankie did, the 63 feet and divide it by 5.28. The number should only go up 12 house units, not hundreds. You're telling me it's going up hundreds?
No, it's going up from 603 to 615 to 635.
Oh, okay, well, it's doing what it's supposed to do.
So, Commissioner, for every 100 linear feet of ground movement, the address points go up 18.93.
Yeah, okay. So, I understand. I've got the math now. I was confused.
I got one question. Just to put a finer point on it. Do you round up when you get to that point? Because, I mean, we are dealing with units that are fractional at some point.
I assume we do. I don't do the addressing by GIS, but I'm assuming they do round that up.
Okay.
To the whole number.
But which is sensible? 102, 103, 104, 105, 106.
Well, let me just say this. I understand what they're doing. They're working off of a big plat consideration, whereby they're, like Chris just said, I mean, when you're looking at somebody else being in between, then those values have to be considered. So what they're doing is they're leaving room for those values to be considered, I think. Am I right? Does that make sense?
Well, there's no room at Scooter Point. It's the problem. That makes sense, what you're saying.
Yeah,
That was intended.
but that's the concept.
But if you take and do, just like the gentleman with the EMS guy, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way, but if we go out and we put very visible 103, 114 signs in these yards, I mean, I think that's going to help too.
Well, the comment that Brian and I made to the Homeowners Association when we met, this is a ordinance. Brian didn't have the authority. The chairman didn't have the authority. It takes a vote of the commissioners to
to waive that.
But that's what I'm asking. Can we not do an amendment to the ordinance? You know, and I would hope that, you know, everyone would consider the request from Schooner Point, you know, what it's going to do to each property owner, or what they're going to have to do when it's been there for 30 years.
You weren't in the county when we used to have Write 1, Box 125, and everybody had to do it.
I understand that, but we're not there now. Now, you know, the technology is a whole lot better now than then.
And I think we all understand that. It's that, as I told you, I've been a commissioner for almost 9 years, and we've never had anybody to challenge and say the technology has changed. We want to keep our old address. This is the first time.
Yeah.
Well,
first time?
Yeah.
You've been one longer.
Well,
it's not the fact of the old address, Chairman. It's the fact that the addresses are working, and you're trying to give us new addresses.
Well, I think the manager probably hit it a while ago when he said, if you do this, you're going to open up a can of worms, because I'm familiar with a whole lot of addressing in the county, and you are, because people, there's a lot of things that go on, like there are 10 people at a certain place in the county that are using the main road, US 264 as an address, and there's 10 mailboxes lined up out there. So, you know, how do you find them? How does EMS find them, or the sheriff find them if they've got a situation? So they're going to want to keep theirs like it is. So if you do one, you're going to have to do a bunch of them, and that's really the bind that you're in.
Well, I mean, I still think, I mean, I'm in construction, and I put water meters all over several counties. You know how I find most of the addresses, or my guys find most of the addresses? With this. I mean,
So you got a friend coming from out of town. If they put your old address in there,
it's going to carry you there.
it carries you right to the house.
Yep.
You know, do we know of any other situations where we just missed it?
Well, I do know since I've been here, and I've been here since 15, we've made some changes in Washington Park that were not right. We've found some in Bath that are not right. A lot of those fall into, like the one in Bath is kind of the same thing. They used lot numbers. And I mean, I get that from a developer. That's the easiest way for them to do it. I don't know why that one wasn't caught. We've also found a place in Bath where where the way it was actually block address through there, and a lot of municipalities did that, but when somebody came back in and built another house, there wasn't even enough room to add an address in there. So that's where the complicating factor comes in. I mean, I clearly understand the concern and I understand the change. Our goal under the ordinance is to be uniform and to do that across the entire county. But I understand the impact that it has, and from our perspective, it's an ordinance, and we're bound by the ordinance, and you're the legislative body that says how that ordinance is applied or not applied. So we don't, as the chairman said, we don't have the ability to
defined
just...
area, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's just, you know, I mean, I know where it is, and I know I've been up in there, so, you know, I don't really have a problem with it. If you are going to do the sign thing, and I assume you have a HOA.
That's correct.
And so anybody else that builds in there is going
to do the same thing.
Would have to do the same thing. And if you, because I know I've run EMS many times, and I look at the address, those green numbers on the mailbox, or either a lighted number on the house. That's what I go by.
Okay, gentlemen, I appreciate your comments. Appreciate you coming.
Can I say one thing, though?
Yes.
I just wish you guys would consider and think about it, of what the expense and the burden that it's going to put on each property owner when you make this decision. That's all we ask.
Okay.
And I think that we've given, you know, some valid points that are very reasonable, that would help make everything work out. And thank y'all for your time.
Let me say this, you know, you've essentially proposed a dual addressing system. And I'm
Correct.
trying to think, and this maybe I need to go home and do some thinking before I say this, but I don't know why, for delivery purposes, you can't put up, you're required to put the county address up on a certain size reflector and all that sort of thing. But as a non-entity item that would not conflict with this, I don't know why you can't put up your address that you're using now for convenience of delivery and everything else.
I see what you're saying there, but you've got to consider also, you've got to go change all your personal information, your license.
Oh, I understand.
All that, you've got to call all your people that sends bills to you. All that's got to be changed. Your MasterCard, Visa card's got to be changed.
Yeah, but there's a place to change address on every one of those when you get that phone.
I agree, but it's also, you know, you got to go through it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we're just asking that you consider that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go on with the manager's request.
That it be denied?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of denying the change, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Did you get it? Okay. Gentlemen, we're down at the break. We're down at the break, so we'll take a 15-minute break and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back from the break, and the next item you have, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is a cybersecurity grant program that the county applied for, and we were awarded from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. It is for cybersecurity measures, training, and assessment of our IT system. The grant award is actually $100,000. When we applied for this, we used the local match of $26,583.20. Is what we were planning. It was scheduled for us to replace our firewall next year anyway, or this year in our budget. So we said in our grant application, we're going to use that to provide our match, because that was an opportunity to give you a few more points if you matched up against it. You didn't have to match against it, but we said, look, we're already doing this. Let's use that as a match. And we actually showed it. You'll see on page 300, we actually were saying that we would use the whole amount, but and only get 97 from the state. The state came back and said, we'll give you $100,000. So what we're requesting is your approval to approve the attached MOA and the project ordinance, so that we can use these funds for enhanced cybersecurity measures.
Second. All right, motion and a second. Any questions of Brian?
Only question I have, are you going to, as a consultant on this $104,000, decide what equipment to purchase or whatever?
No, so we actually already have that decided. It's the Tenable SC network monitoring. It's a service that stands on top of that filters and looks for stuff for intrusions. And then we're going to do some training with our folks. We'll also do some simulated cyber attacks on our system, so that we'll know where our vulnerabilities may be and be able to correct those.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Richardson, Registered Deeds report.
Yes, some of you may get excited about this, so just hold on to your seats. But we've got a serious problem in Beaufort County. Deeds are not being physically recorded in Beaufort County. And that started on January the 4th of this year, when the new Register of Deeds took over. They are being recorded on the internet. They're being recorded on cyberspace, and they will tell you that there's 4 or 5 or 6 different backups in the cloud, so don't worry about this. And that's not true, because the Secretary of State's office told me this week that system had been hacked earlier this year. It took them 2 weeks to get part of it back up and going. The whole system didn't go down because of the backups. But if you think about this, for hundreds of years, turn this thing on, for hundreds of years, North Carolina is one of 3 states, and I defer to the lawyer. He can correct me on this because he does real estate and he knows a lot more about it than I do as far as the particulars. But we're called a rush to the courthouse state, which means that you go to whoever gets to the courthouse first with the deed owns the property. The other person gets to sue for fraud. Now, I've seen plenty of times when we don't go into the Register of Deeds office as much as we used to because we use the internet a lot for research, and it's great, but it's not the way to protect your property and to protect your deeds. But I've seen plenty of lawyers rush into the courthouse before they file a deed, go back to the deeds and paw through 2 or 3 books and then go in and record the deed. You can't do that now, and that information is not available in hard copy at the courthouse. I checked this morning. The last deed that was filed at the courthouse as a hard copy was filed on January the 4th of this year. Now, there's misinformation out here, and I'm gonna be right up front with you. A lot of what we have been told by the Register of Deeds is not true. She told us at the last meeting that we stopped filing hard copies in December of last year. That's not true. She stopped. She became Register of Deeds, I believe, on January the 1st, and her first thing that she did was to stop filing deeds in hard copy. This is a really, really serious thing. I've been involved in court cases where we went into the Register of Deeds before the trial, the morning of the trial, and got a certified copy of a deed to take into the trial because we knew the hard copies were there, so you didn't have to worry about finding it. You can't do that with any certainty right now because if they tell you the internet's down or something, you don't have anything. So I checked this morning, found this last deed was recorded January the 4th of this year. Now, we're being told, and Jennifer Leggett never said we were out of space. What Jennifer said is we're running out of space. You guys need to be thinking about what to do about this. I didn't worry about it because I'm in the courthouse in the Register of Deeds office about once a week. I used to be in there every day, but I'm in there about once a week now. I assessed the situation over there this morning. There are 5 or 6 cabinets that are a little more than waist high, flat top, that have deed books in them, hard copy deed books in them. There's abundant, a lot more working space than we ever needed. I've been in there in the old days before the internet when lawyers and surveyors were in there elbow to elbow, looking at deeds, reading deeds, and doing things. The place is empty. It's empty most of the time. There's 1 or 2 people in there. We don't need working space like we did before. I gathered some information, did some calculations this morning. We have about 7 or 8 years, and that's a conservative number, of storage available if we take those flat tops in there and simply put another unit on top of it and raise it up to the height that the wall units are. There's plenty of space. We're not going to run out of space in the Register of Deeds if we do that. We have about, actually my computation says 11 years there. This is something that I don't think the property owners in Beaufort County are going to be happy about. I know that I'm not happy about it, knowing the importance of and the reliance historically on everyone going to the courthouse and finding their deed. Because most people, if you ask them, and I've done this, and I guess the attorney has too, you need to bring your deed in. I'm having a little bit of a problem. A lot of them can't find it. And a lot of them, they take them and they put them with their papers and they say, we're relying on the courthouse because that's where my deed is. And if there's a problem, that's where I'm going to go. So we as a board, I don't think the Register of Deeds has the authority on her own unilaterally to stop recording physical deeds just because the internet's available. And I think we as a board need to take action to fix this. And it's easily fixed right now. And it's fixed by buying one cabinet, which will cost about $1,000. And that one cabinet will run us for almost 3 years of filing of deeds at the torrid rate that deeds have been filed for the last 3 or 4 years. So we need to take action, and we may want our attorney to look into this to see what we can do. But we set the budget, for one thing. We have given the Register of Deeds the money to physically record these deeds. The legislature says how much can be collected for the recording of a deed, a physical recording. There's nowhere in the statutes that I know of that says that you can collect the money and you can record on the internet. And somebody may stand to correct me on this. But I think we've got a serious problem insofar as serving the public with this particular issue. And we need to take action. It's easily fixed. Order the Register of Deeds to get on the internet, if you will, and to pull that stuff down and put it in hard copy books and put it out there for the public to use, and to keep her indexes up. You see, another question, I didn't look at this, is are they keeping the index books up? If they're not keeping the physical index books up in the courthouse and they're relying on the internet for that, you got an even more serious problem. This is important. People's property and the ownership of that property is important. And I could see some legal problems maybe coming out of this too, somewhere down the road, of people not being able to go to the courthouse and get their deed physically because the internet's down and the commissioners sat here and let it happen. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Beaufort County to protect their property the best way that we can. And the Register of Deeds had no experience being a Register of Deeds when we appointed her, and the first day in office she violated her charge. So we need to figure out what we're going to do about this.
I didn't know about this till Hood brought it to our attention tonight. But Hood is, unless somebody can tell me otherwise, Hood is 100% correct. Let me present something to you. What if we had an EMP blast here, everywhere? Everything goes down. Everything. Now, you cannot go for months, maybe years, you cannot go and get an electronic digital manifestation of somebody's ownership of a piece of property. And our courthouse is empty of those deeds that are supposed to be registered in hard copy. This is no different than votes being on hard copy. This is a deed. And that deed has to be there, and the index has to be in a hard copy form, I would think, as well, or you're not going to find it. So, I mean, my years in real estate, back before the internet, I used that deed vault as if it was a way to learn everything about Beaufort County. Now, we currently, if this is true, and please, somebody tell me if this is not happening, and Hood's got it wrong, and now I've got it wrong. But if this is true, her charge has been violated, and our charge will be violated as well if we don't do something about it, I would say tonight. All we have to do, as Hood said, is ask her to draw down all the information and then record it in hard copy, certified, whatever she's got to do, and then index it. And then we'll be okay. I don't care if she has to store it in a corner somewhere. At least we'll have it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I raised a question talking about January the 1st, and here we are October the 2nd. I've not had one attorney call me and voice any concerns about the way it's being done. Has any other commissioner got a call?
But they're not in charge, though. We are.
No. I mean, look, we deal with the public, we deal with the stakeholders, and the attorneys are the ones that are doing this. And I mean, why wouldn't an attorney have already called Frankie or called David or Brian or somebody and complained?
Oh, okay.
What do surrounding counties do? I mean,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what the attorneys do. This is our charge as commissioners to make sure that that deed vault is run appropriately. Now, I can tell you right now, if we are in truly a race state, and Hood hit it right on the nail, I mean, it just came very clear to me when he said, when Hood said, guess what could happen? It could be that somebody's got to present a deed and they don't know where it is because they've been buying and selling property for decades, and they knew the most official copy that's going to be found anywhere is going to be in the deed vault. Why? Because we are a race state. He who gets it up there first owns the property. That's as simple as it is. I know that sounds crazy, but that's everybody that's taught real estate, everybody that's taught law, so, you know, the lawyers would know this as well, Frankie. That's the way it works in North Carolina.
Well, tell me why an attorney wouldn't have raised the issue.
I don't care. I can tell you why.
I could care less
I can tell you why.
Why?
Because I use the Beaufort County Register of Deeds every day in my business.
So you're using the internet, I mean.
I'm using the internet. The lawyers are using the internet. The real estate people are using the internet. And recent filings are not important necessarily to people. It's really, once you get 4 or 5 years, people start transferring property and all that sort of kind of stuff. So it may be 2 or 3 years before people come to you and say, you know, I went to the courthouse and I couldn't find a hard copy of this or that deed. What can happen is just what Stan or somebody else said a while ago. These magnetic storms, you haven't had one yet. When you get a magnetic storm, a plume coming from the sun that the earth crosses, it's going to shut down a lot of this computer equipment. Maybe Randy said it. It's going to shut down a lot of computer equipment. It's going to shut down a lot of cars. The military stuff, for the most part, is shielded. But the stuff that we drive and use is not shielded. There was a magnetic storm reputedly, I can't prove this, but I read the article, that said people in the 1860s when the telegraph first came out, there was a guy that was electrocuted on the telegraph from the magnetic storm. Now that's hard to believe, but
it set all the poles on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, on the Outer Banks, every one of them was burning.
Really? Okay, there we go. This is a serious matter when you start putting stuff on the internet. We all know there are hackers out there. I don't care how good your computer system is, somebody can hack it. Yeah. Somebody can get in there and shut that stuff down. And what do they want when they do that? Send them money. And a lot of times the stuff is never restarted. It's damaged to that extent. Now, it's one thing to take the risk of putting the county's corporate books on the cloud and it's saved 4 or 5 places and all that kind of stuff. That's one thing. If that comes to have the bad luck with that, we can live with that. But going back and recreating property ownerships and chains of title when the internet is not there is impossible.
Yeah.
And that's why this stuff needs to be in hard copy in the courthouse.
Well, while I understand exactly what Commissioner Richardson is saying, my question is there a law that says that they have to be hard copies of the documents? And if so, is there a statute number for it? And also, who really has jurisdiction over the Register of Deeds since it is an elected position? While I understand what you're saying, I understand it and I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to be right. We can think alike, but as long as we're right.
Well, here's the thing about it. The reason that we have control of it is it's the county commissioners that do the budget that appropriates the money for the Register of Deeds to record this information. Now, the only reason that you haven't had the issue come up to separate what you're talking about between one medium or another medium is up and from the beginning of time until about 10 years ago, we only had one way to do it.
Exactly.
Now there are 2 ways to do it. And I don't have a problem with putting it on the internet, but I've got a serious problem with not the county, the government, not protecting people's property with hard copy recordings that could be hit with a meteorite and destroyed, I guess, but that are safe for the use of the public. And that's what our responsibility is. I don't care what the law says somewhere else. I don't care anything else. There's nothing in the law that gives the Register of Deeds the right to change the method of recording. Show me that. I know that's not there.
I've got a question. Mr. Richards, I agree with you wholeheartedly that I would like to see a hard copy. But I also know that the budget I just passed, we didn't give her no money to record deeds. She get her money, and correct me if I'm wrong, from revenue from those stamps. Am I correct?
Yeah, but it's not
Am I correct?
that is not an off-budget item, Mr. Commissioner. That is a budgeted item. And wait a minute, let me finish.
Go ahead.
We provide the funds, we provide the pay for the money is a budgeted item for the staff that works for her. So all these arguments of trying to pull her out of this are not going to work.
I'm not trying.
Everybody in this county is concerned about his property and wants to know that it is safe. And let me remind you, one of the biggest farces out there is the $15,000 that the Register of Deeds paid for some computer company to tell you if somebody filed a duplicate deed of trust on you. Anybody that knows anything about real estate and transactions in North Carolina knows it's a farce. But guess what? I was on 2 other counties' websites today, and guess what? I saw a little button up there where they paid their $15,000 too. It's the biggest ripoff out there. Your security is in that hard copies that are put on file at the courthouse. Several years ago, there were cases down in Beaufort, that area, where people were taking deeds of trust, scissors, and tape, and they were changing deeds of trust and taking it to the courthouse as a hard copy. They were caught because they had hard copies to work on. You can take a lot of that stuff now and massage it on the computer, and you can't tell that it's a forgery.
That's true.
You got any comments, David?
Well, a couple things come to mind. Is it working now?
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Thank you.
Do we know, and I understand we're dealing with Beaufort County here, but do we know, have we checked other counties and see what they're doing? I know I had a closing 5, 6, 7 months ago that involved a situation they couldn't record anything. And it was a serious, substantial amount of money. And so we sat around, we waited about 48 hours before the Register of Deeds would tell us they could record now. And that was recording just the copies, of course, of the deed, but they were backed up and couldn't record. And I wondered at the time what's going on exactly, but it opened up and we got the closing finished, and it was finished. So what is going elsewhere? You know, there's a statewide real estate thing that we can check on. I mean, it's one of the places we ought to be looking to solve the problem here, and to see what's happening. I think everywhere. I don't do the amount of real estate that I used to do. I'll just put that to you. But I would check with other folks just to see what's happening before we go into other things. I think the idea of the cabinet and the putting copies, because you're actually not recording, you're recording a copy of the deed.
It's just another step.
Yeah.
Where we're making the copy.
Exactly. I think that's the thing to do, but we got to figure this out from kind of what's the overall situation here, and there already might be a situation in the works. I just don't know.
Any harm in asking her? I mean, it's her call. She's the Register of Deeds.
It's not her call. No.
State legislators.
I know she just, if she had done anything to violate the law, and Hood, I'm not trying to bail out. I agree with you. I'd like to have a hard copy of mine myself, I'm telling you. But if she had broke any laws, somebody else would already be down here besides us. But is there any reason why we couldn't ask her if she would start back, or what's the reason why she's not doing hard copies?
Well, she's an employee. I mean, you can certainly ask the questions. and work on the answers, but.
She's the rest of these. She's
Sure.
elected by the people. She's elected by the people.
Correct. Can I go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just finding out about this tonight. I'm just finding out about this tonight, and this is just kind of coming to me kind of fast. And then I'm starting looking at it from a big picture overview. And I think Hood Richardson, this guy right here, may have discovered something, at least for Beaufort County and maybe many other counties. If we're going to start going and find out what other counties are doing, we're going to find out that, in my opinion, just from knowing what I know over the years, when people ask me, well, where's my deed going to be recorded when I sell them a piece of property? And I say, oh, it's going to be recorded at the courthouse or a race state. That's going to be where it's the most final, most perfect deed available. If you lose it, it'll be there. And then there's that opportunity it won't be there. When I start hearing about 48 hours to record deeds, that tells me the internet or their computer system, their platform that they're interfacing with was down. That should not play into the recording of a document. They can upload those documents at a later time. What we're talking about is gross inefficiency and gross incompetence if Hood is right and other counties are doing it too. So it's like the lemmings. Is everybody going to jump off the cliff? We're going to find out how everybody else is doing it wrong, and we're going to be the same way. It's either right or it's wrong. We're either a race state where it's recorded at the courthouse where that is the final and most best copy, or we're not. I mean, I can have that deed, and that's the deed. You got all the original signatures, but there's somebody that filed ahead of me, and for whatever reason, I may not be favored in court because I didn't file it at the courthouse, even though I got the original deed. See, effectively, if that data, and that can happen, I'm in the business, I know if that data is lost in the cloud and on a server somewhere else, then what is at the courthouse is what's very important. If there's nothing there, we are in jeopardy as commissioners, and we are in charge. When you were asking about the state tax, it's $2 per thousand. That money comes to us. We use that money as part of the revenue to pay all these people. We have the final say, or we just stop paying them if we don't think they're doing the job right. I don't care if they're elected or not. Elected people have got to justify their existence and what they are responsible for. No, we provide the building. We operate as the body politic. She is part of the body politic, but we are the body politic of the state of North Carolina.
Well, I want to make sure that, to my knowledge, I don't think any law has been broken. I mean, we've got real estate attorneys that are working in several counties, and surely somebody would have raised the question of the procedure and the way it's being done. I think.
Lawyers don't go to the courthouse to the register of deeds anymore. Surveyors don't go to the courthouse to the register of deeds anymore. It is on the internet, and it's very easy to use, and it is very efficient. When I go to the courthouse, it's because of our old filings. I need to get into those, or it's because a document was, listen to this, poorly scanned so you couldn't read it or use it, and you had to go look at the original to see what it was about, and that happens.
Yeah.
I had a map just this week of a modern survey that was poorly scanned. It just happened. You know, stuff happens. You couldn't read the map. So you have to go look at the original at the courthouse. That is the official and final repository that you go for this kind of stuff. Now, you guys can sit in here and make all the excuses you want to for the register of deeds, but you elected her. I didn't. I told you what this was going to be when you voted for her, because I saw it coming. She has absolutely no experience as a register of deeds. And if you think this foul up is the end of this, I got news for you.
Well, I pray this is the end of it, because this is pretty big if this is what I think it is. Yeah. I mean, we need to, I would make a motion tonight that we act to have her record all the deeds.
I second the motion to have her catch up the deeds.
Yeah.
We're using 40 books a year.
Yeah.
You would have to purchase one new stand, which would last you about 3 years to go on top of what's there. Would put the top of the stand at the same elevation as the other wall files in the courthouse, and that will solve the problem. We have already paid the salary and the wages and the expenses for this to be done. We as commissioners have a right to say, we paid you for hard copy recording. Nobody said when we did the budget that we were going to record on the internet. You guys voted for a budget, so you're in a tight corner with your arguments. You need to face up and do your job and stop playing politics with this woman who also happens to be the chairman of the Republican Party in Beaufort County that you kiss up with every time you see her.
Commissioner
So it's
Richardson,
time to get this out of the fire and get the work done.
Yeah, I think you've said it, Randy.
I think it's fair to let's hear from her, and I'd like to see her come in armed with what the surrounding counties do. I'd just like to hear what they do. I mean, I think that's a valid answer, and I think if we've gone this far, another 30 days is not going to be terrible. And she'd come in here and explain things, and it might be that she leaves in 30 days making copies, hard copies. I agree with what you're saying, but I'd like to hear from her. I don't think we should pull the rug out from under her leg, from under.
Well, I get the impression you guys are dealing in personality politics. You want to hear from her.
And I get the same feeling from you.
Her has
I get the same feeling from you.
nothing to do with the issue of deeds are supposed to be recorded in Beaufort County. They're not being recorded. So what else do you guys need to know?
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Hold it. John?
I think we already just saw tonight that we had egg on our face because we rushed into a decision on the solid waste with the time elements on when they could collect solid waste. I think we need to slow down a little bit and have David research the state law. Okay, I'm not going to take your word for it or anybody else's word.
You should respect me more than that because of my position and the fact that I use the system.
Excuse me.
Show me some respect.
Will you show me respect? Jeez.
Please, Hood, cut your mic.
Okay. I think when you start talking about respect, we owe people in this county that are running this business the respect to let them come and explain themselves. I think we also owe it to the people of this county to be sure we're doing the right thing. And that means that, David, we need you to tell us what the law says, not just what somebody thinks it says with regard to this, and that we need to come together and make a decision based on the facts, not based on somebody's opinions.
Okay,
facts.
You're not either.
Okay,
you might.
I would like to restate my motion, since Hood has already seconded. If you will would be agreeable to the amendment of the motion. I would like for my motion to state that tonight we order. Tonight we order the Register of Deeds to go on the internet and retrieve all information and data of all deeds filed in Beaufort County in digital format, make a hard copy, and keep that stored with an index in the Register of Deeds as the premier and first copy.
In the same form that the prior Register of Deeds.
As per general statutes.
Yeah.
As per general statutes. And then we will satisfy what you guys are saying about what are the general statutes. We just do it by the general statutes.
Yeah. Second.
All right. The only difference is your motion says that we ask her to do it immediately.
Yeah. Order. Right.
An order.
We order.
An order. So, okay. Anybody else have a discussion? All right. All those in.
I just want to say one thing, since there's a discussion period. Just think, guys, what if we do have that electronic burst from the sun or EMP, God forbid? Well, I mean, these are perilous times we're in right now with our government. But let's talk about the sun. It can happen. I mean, we're fortunate on this planet. We have electromagnetic field that saves us from the really bad bursts. But if there is a discharge from the sun that is huge, it could fry everything. I think about it every day. We back everything we've got on a hard drive and we put it in an old microwave. I mean, an old, a removable hard drive, and we do that, and that's outside of the cloud, so to speak, off any server. I mean, that's how paranoid we are. So I don't doubt if we're even doing that. If we lose all the data and information that is up there now, and we talked about it tonight, and it happens in between the next time we meet, you guys are talking about egg on your face. That's going to be supreme egg on your face. That's going to be an omelet.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed. All right. You want to go to your next. You want to go to your next item on cable TV? Huh?
Yeah, that was put in there. I put that in there by accident. I think the manager sufficiently answered that at the last meeting.
All right. How about the video presentation?
Wait a minute. Which one did you just put up? The TV franchises? No, I want to say something on the TV franchises. It was actually the video that the manager properly answered the last time.
I have something for you on the video franchise.
Oh, okay, great.
But you're not going to like it. So Article 42 is the state franchise for cable television service, and it reads the authority, Section 66-351A, authority. The Secretary of State is designated the exclusive franchising authority in this state for cable service provided over cable television. Then you go to award and scope. The Secretary is considered to have awarded a franchise to a person who files a notice of franchise under GS 66-352. So if you go to the Secretary of State's website, under FAQs, it says, who negotiates the term of the franchise agreement? It says the answer depends upon whether it's a state or a local franchise. If it's a state franchise, which they are all state franchises now because in 2007, the state took over all of it and said, we're doing all that. It says there's no statewide franchise agreement. We don't negotiate the franchise agreements. Companies can offer customers the agreements they think are appropriate and legal. And then another FAQ says, who issues state cable TV franchises? This is the answer. Technically, no one does.
That's right.
The way it works is this. We review the notice of franchise someone submits to see if it's complete and the fee has been paid. If it's complete and the fee has been paid, we file the notice of franchise. At that point, the filer has a state franchise. So,
yeah, I got on the Secretary of State's site and read the same thing and said, man, this is a nothing burger. What the franchises have done is they've set this up so that there is literally no supervision of them. They can do whatever they want to. They can treat you as badly as they want to. But on the other side of that coin, and this is hard to do and it doesn't happen, anybody can apply for a franchise over top of another franchise that wants to. You look at the Secretary of State's site, so you can apply for a franchise for Washington and set up your own. Look what it would cost. I mean, it's something that's just about impossible to do. So, yeah, Josh Stein, as Attorney General, who is supposed to be protecting the public as part of this, if he wants to be governor, he needs to figure out how to fix cable TV in North Carolina, because I think that's going to be a big issue. And he's the guy that's on the hot seat, not the Secretary of State, because all the laws say, well, we really don't have anything to do with it. We just take your application.
Right. So, Commissioner Richardson, under service standards and requirements, 66-356, under complaints, it reads, the Consumer Protection Division of the Attorney General's Office is designated as a state agency to receive and respond to consumer complaints regarding cable television. That's the statute.
Yeah.
You want to go to the resolution on opposing liquor sales on Sunday?
Yeah, it's real simple. I move that we pass a resolution that says that we do not approve the sale of liquor on Sunday.
All right, I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
ABC store, man.
ABC store, yeah.
Yeah, ABC. Hey, look, when I say liquor, ABC store.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
Some discussion that they're going to open on Sunday?
Yeah, it was up in the, it's dead right now. There was a bill in the legislature.
It's been approved, but before the ABCs could open, the commissioners would have to approve that.
So
Has that bill gone through?
So, Mr. Chairman, can I speak to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's Senate Bill 527. It's been passed by the House, sent over to the Senate, and it's on the verge of being approved by the Senate, is my understanding. They've gone through like 5 different substitutions. But in the language in the bill reads that the appointing authority for the ABC board would be required to approve that if the ABC board wanted to open on Sundays. In a minute, where that ABC board like is in Beaufort County, the Board of Commissioners is the appointing authority. So they would have to come to you and say, we would like to do this, and you would have to agree to that. I've also had a conversation this afternoon with the chairman of the ABC board. He said he had not polled his folks, but he said he did not believe there was any appetite at all to do that on his board. So,
Yeah, I don't think anybody is pushing us to.
Yeah, we just need to be on record opposing it.
So, okay, second?
All right, yeah, we got to say, I second it. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Thank you. Now we're down to the sovereign border resolution.
Okay.
You want to read your resolution?
Yeah, I'm going to speak first, then I'll read the resolution. As a commissioner over the last number of decades, I think public record will show that I've been somewhat fighting against illegal immigration and it not being enforced the way it's supposed to be by the codes of the federal government. And there's laws that have been passed, they have not been enforced. We have a broken system because of that. That's the only reason we have a broken system, because the laws that have not been enforced have not been enforced. And if we need to change the laws that are on the books in Washington, D.C., that needs to be done. But that is not the issue. The issue now is that we have a problem at the southern border. We have a problem at the northern border too, we're finding out. But the southern border is an egregious problem. So far in the last 3 years, almost 3 years of the Biden-Harris open border policy, there have been at least 7 million people come across that border. 11,000 a day here recently. So many people are being sent away from Texas, although Texas and Arizona and New Mexico, California are catch basins of these illegal immigrants. So many people are being sent out to cities with about a small help from some of the governors of those states. They got the credit for it, but really, the Biden administration has been sending these illegal immigrants to all these other states, and now these deep blue states that did not know of the issue because, quite frankly, the corrupt corporate media has not followed this, have not reported on it, and this was not an issue because they figured it would be detrimental to their cause. It is detrimental to their cause, but it's detrimental to our republic surviving as a constitutional republic. The math will not let us survive. They're seeing it in New York, they're seeing it in California, they're seeing it in Illinois. There are no solutions because they've never considered it a problem. It is a problem. It's a massive problem. Now I'm going to go to the resolution. A lot of this is in the resolution. It speaks directly to it. And again, you guys can listen to it if you want to change something, fine. But this is what I think should be sent to all 99 counties, the General Assembly, and our congressional delegation. Let them know that we care. I would like to state this for the fact. When I infrequently go on these trips to some of these conferences that we have as commissioners, it's important for us to meet and talk to other commissioners. I do that. I try to meet and talk with every commissioner I can talk to and what time I have to do so. What I have noticed with the commissioners I speak to, these new commissioners, some of them old, they are taking a very hardline approach to fixing these problems that we have at the federal level that are sifting down to us. They all agree our counties will become border counties. We have to educate the children as per the Supreme Court decision some time ago. I forget, it's like 30 years ago. We have to educate all children. That is a tremendous expense for the Beaufort County citizens. That filter through our hospitals, that costs a lot of money as well. So I'll read the resolution and we can make a decision to do what is right. Resolution in defense of these United States sovereign borders. Whereas history teaches us that no nation can continue to exist if it does not defend its sovereign borders against the invasion of an unknown entity that is seeking to secure permanent space within the body of a good people of a constitutional republic who are intended to be self-governed by the rule of law evenly applied. And whereas on January 20th, 2021, the Biden-Harris administration ended a variety of effective executive orders enacted by the previous president, Donald John Trump, that were increasingly successful in limiting the rush of illegal immigration by instituting their own proclamation on ending discriminatory bans on entry to the United States, an executive order completely ambivalent to the rule of law, whose very title succinctly states the intended purpose of the Biden administration's open southern border policy. And whereas since January 20th, 2021, the Biden-Harris open border policy has worked as an accessory and in tandem with the ambitions of all criminal activities desirous of Mexican drug and human trafficking cartels, those nefarious evils of criminality include, but not limited to, the human sex slave trafficking, including minors, the deadly distribution of fentanyl within our United States borders, the welcoming of known terrorists into our societal fabric of unsuspecting American citizens, all an inconvenient consequence of the promotion of this Biden-Harris created invasion of illegal immigrants, their expressed intention to destroy the demographic quality of our American society, to tear asunder our constitutional republic. And whereas, as this invited invasion of illegals has hit historic proportions whereby southern border towns and counties are inundated by a non-interdicted flow of illegal migrants, contrary to the enforcement of congressional United States immigration laws, real legislative laws temporarily rendered inactive by executive fiat, many of these southern border counties, cities, and states are choosing to constitutionally migrate small quantities of illegals far away from their overrun locations to sanctuary cities, counties, and states, of which these illegal migrants are effectively becoming an ironic, unwelcome addition to these formerly professed inclusive communities. And whereas the struggle to provide safety to our citizens from this undeterred flow of illegals under the Biden-Harris open southern border policy, coupled with the cost to provide service to these unlawful entrants upon our land, not least of which the increasingly expensive strain on a failing public education system, has yet to fully present that abundant and expanding cost to the American people. And whereas the good people, the taxpayers of Beaufort County, will not evade these additional costs to those services rendered, as we too will become a border county in due time, whose citizens will be forced to also fund and endure this errant, unwise, and unconstitutional open border policy of the Biden-Harris administration. Therefore, be it resolved that the Beaufort County Commissioners do hereby formally demand that all congressional laws regarding enforcement of legal immigration no longer yield to the whim of the arbitrary and capricious executive orders of the Biden-Harris administration, and that the will of the people's laws be enforced as codified by the legislative branch, as is the constitutional duty of this executive branch to enforce.
You want to make that a motion?
That is a motion.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution?
Wait, John.
I'm sorry.
I can support this because I think the facts are correct here, except for the last sentence in paragraph 3, which is more of an opinion than fact, in my view. And I think if you take that out...
Last sentence, that would be...
Well, it's a half a sentence.
Where does it start? It's a long sentence because it's a resolution.
Starting with their expressed intention to destroy the demographic quality of our American society.
You want that out?
Yeah. If you put a period after illegal
I think that's a very
immigrants.
provable, factual point But if you'll vote for it with that out, I will go with that.
I will.
Okay?
Show me where that is.
After immigrants, there's put a period and take the rest.
They're expressed, okay. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
That's what I wanted to do.
All right. Okay, we're down to closed session. Katie or David, you want to read us into the closed session?
A closed session is requested under NCGS 143-318-11
Excuse me.
A3.
Okay, start again, Katie.
Okay. A closed session is requested under NCGS 143-318-11 A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body. The closed session will also include a personnel matter which is covered under NCGS 143-318-11 A6.
Okay, need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor of closed session, raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, we're coming back from closed session. Need a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thanks.